Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the MLB slate on DraftKings and Yahoo for Tuesday, April the 23rd. We do have a big Tuesday slate today, 13 games on the MLB main slate. I'm going to go through the pitcher player pool, talk about some of the pitchers that I like on this 13 game slate. Of course, I'll give my two core pitchers, and then I'll go through some of the other pitchers that I'll be targeting. And then we will talk about some hitters that I like, three hitters, and then we'll go over stacks and BVP plays at the end for those of you that are interested in BVP. Just before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video, and if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. But a pitcher today at the top, Kenta Maeda is our most expensive option. He's $10K in a matchup with the Cubs. I don't really have any interest in Maeda today as the most expensive pitcher. There's just other ways I'd rather look on the slate. My favorite guy to pay up for would probably be Zach Eflin at 9,400 against the Mets, and I still don't have a ton of interest in him. I think pitching today, you definitely want to go to the mid-range. I don't think you have to pay up. I think a guy like Trevor Williams at just 8,300, $1,700 cheaper than Maeda, $1,400 cheaper than Quintana, even $1,100 cheaper than Zach Eflin. A guy like Trevor Williams at 8,300, I think makes a ton of sense. On Yahoo, I think he's a very good play as well. He's 36 over here. He's like the 6th most expensive pitcher, I believe, or 7th most expensive pitcher. Really good play on Yahoo as well. Trevor Williams gets a really good matchup here facing the Diamondbacks in PNC Park in Pittsburgh's ballpark, which is a very favorable pitcher's park. This Diamondbacks team does strike out quite a bit versus right-handed pitching, and if we look at their lineup and their implied run total, they do have a low implied run total of just 3.7 runs. It's a very bad Diamondbacks lineup as well. Plenty of strikeouts here for Trevor Williams. He's not a guy that goes out there and gets like 10, 12 strikeouts, but against this lineup, it's possible you get 6 innings, 7, 8 strikeouts out of Trevor Williams and a win. And he could definitely give you 25, 26, 27 DraftKings points in this matchup, which could be pretty good value at 8,300. So I like going to him as an SP1 today. And I like pairing Frankie Montas with Williams. Frankie Montas is 7,600 on DraftKings, and on Yahoo, he's way down here at just $30. Looks really good on Yahoo, very cheap. Montas also in a really good spot, pitching at home against Texas, against the Rangers. This is a Rangers team that does strike out as well, strikes out quite a bit versus right-handed pitching, and they do struggle away from Texas. This game's going to be played in Oakland, which is one of the more favorable pitchers' parks. Texas also has a low implied run total today of just 3.7 runs. Plenty of strikeouts here for Frankie Montas, and I love that he's pitching at home in Oakland. If this game was on the road, like if this game was being played in Texas, I would probably not have much interest in Montas. I would honestly probably be stacking against him, but since it's being played in Oakland, in that pitcher-friendly park, and with how much Texas struggles on the road, I think Montas is a really good play here, especially on DraftKings and Yahoo, where he's reasonably priced, 7,630 on Yahoo. I like Frankie Montas quite a bit. There's a lot of other pitchers that I do like on this slate. Just scrolling through and looking through some other options, I think at 7,900, Zach Wheeler against the Phillies makes a ton of sense if you do want to go to him. If we're going down to the 7K range, Thornton at 7K against the Giants is a really good play. Thornton's had some tough matchups lately. He has been struggling lately. But if we just look at the game log, his last two matchups, he's really struggled against Tampa Bay. Just -3 DraftKings points against Minnesota, just 3 DK points. Thornton got off to a pretty good start, 26 against Detroit, 19 against Cleveland, and then sort of two tough matchups against a very underrated Tampa Bay team and a pretty good Minnesota team as well. Now he gets to face a really bad Giants team, so get right spot for Trent Thornton at 7K. I do like him quite a bit as a cheaper option. And then you could even look to a guy like Marchevuchis. I don't even know how to say his name, but 6,900 at home against Seattle in Petco. Seattle on the road, so they'll lose their DH. They're another team that has a really low implied run total today, so he could also be a really good option. Those are just some of the other guys you could look to on the slate. Even scrolling through some that I maybe skipped, I wouldn't mind Samardzija against the Blue Jays. I think you could definitely look to him. I mentioned Eflin, I like quite a bit. Those are some of the guys that stand out to me, some of the pitchers I feel like I'm going to be playing today. But now let's talk about some of the hitters that I like. So probably my favorite hitter on the slate is at third base. I love Yohan Moncada today. He's 4,900 on DK, and on Yahoo he's $24. He's in a great spot here. So are the White Sox just as a team. Facing Andrew Cashner in Camden Yards. This is a great spot for the White Sox. They have a 5.3 implied run total today. Facing one of the worst pitchers in the league in Cashner. Did stack up the White Sox quite a bit on Monday. I'm going right back to them on Tuesday. Garcia, Moncada, Abreu, Alonso, Tim Anderson, Nicky Delmonico we're going to talk about as a value. I think all these guys are great plays. Castillo, if you need a catcher option, cheap catcher, 3,700, you could look there. Yolmer Sanchez and Cordell, I'm not as interested in, especially with where they bat in the lineup, but they are so cheap that I think that at least puts them in consideration. But the 1 through 7, that's where I'll really be looking to for the White Sox today. I think they're in a great spot here. If you want to target Orioles bats as well on the other side versus Ivan Nova, Nova's just not a good pitcher. Two really bad pitchers in this game. I think bats from both sides make a ton of sense. Moncada I absolutely love, facing a very bad right-handed pitcher in Cashner. Moncada's been crushing righties this year, a ton of power versus righties. Also has speed as well, so if he gets on base, he can steal bases. Moncada just has so much upside in this matchup. I think he's a really good guy to pay up for at third base. Then I did mention Nicky Delmonico as a value. He's very cheap on DraftKings at just 3,500. Also very cheap on Yahoo. He's in the outfield. He's close to minimum price. He's $8 over here. If you want to get some exposure to the White Sox for cheap, Delmonico would definitely be the guy that I would look to. Projected bat 6th. He's going to be replacing Jimenez, who's going on the bereavement list, I believe. So he'll be in the lineup for at least a few more games. I think Delmonico getting the lefty-righty matchup, getting the platoon split, facing a bad righty in Cashner, makes a ton of sense just as a cheap value, especially if you're stacking up the White Sox. It's pretty easy to include him in your stack just with how much salary he allows you to get at other positions with how cheap he is. $8 on Yahoo and $3,500 on DraftKings. Delmonico does look like a pretty good value today in a great matchup versus Cashner. And then the final hitter that I want to talk about is going to Coors Field. Trevor Story at shortstop. I think is definitely a guy we can pay up for here. Especially if you just look at this slate, there's not any expensive pitching I really like. So you should have plenty of salary to pay for bats. So I don't mind spending this hefty salary on Trevor Story. This is just a guy that has mashed left-handed pitching throughout his career, especially at home in Coors Field. Arenado and Story have been two of the best left-handed hitters in the league, and at home they're even better. So I think a two-man stack of Arenado Story makes a ton of sense. They are facing Patrick Corbin, who is a very good pitcher, but these guys are just still so good versus the lefties that they're hard to avoid for me on this slate, especially since we had the salary to pay for them. Blackman and Hampson I would probably be avoiding. Well, I guess Hampson, since he's 3,600 projected about second, is not the worst play. I don't think I'm going to be full stacking the Rockies, but I will do like a mini stack, a three-man stack of Hampson, Arenado, and Story, just the 2, 3, 4. Those are the guys I really like. You definitely want righties versus Patrick Corbin. The two righties I'm really looking to are Arenado, Story. Hampson I don't mind either, especially since on DraftKings he's so cheap at 3,600. But Story's just a guy we know masses lefties, especially when he's in Coors. And if we look at the BVP for these two guys, Arenado 12 for 41, 3 home runs off of Corbin. Story 6 for 20 with a home run off of Corbin. So both of them have hit Corbin relatively well. Especially if Corbin is going to get some ownership because of how well he's pitched, I wouldn't mind stacking up against him. I just don't roster pitchers in Coors Field. It's something I usually don't do, so I'll be avoiding Corbin today. I'll be taking some Rockies bats, especially Story and Arenado, the two guys that I do really like. But yeah, guys, these are my 5 plays for tonight's MLB slate, 5 plays for DraftKings and for Yahoo. Now let's go over some of the stacks that I'll be looking to on this slate, and then we'll talk about BVP. So my favorite stack, especially when you include some of the prices of these guys, is the White Sox. I really like the White Sox here versus Cashner. My next favorite stack would probably be the Rockies, especially if Corbin's going to get some ownership. I don't mind stacking up some Rockies bats, 2, 3, 4. Even if you want to go to Mark Reynolds or Desmond, you can, but Hampson, Arenado, Story, those are the guys I really like from the Rockies side. White Sox I love. I think some Orioles bats versus Ivan Nova make a ton of sense. Wouldn't full stack the Orioles just because they don't have a ton of good hitters, but VR, Mancini, Nunez, Rios, Dwight Smith, I think those guys are pretty good plays, especially VR and Mancini. Those two guys I love versus Ivan Nova. Nova's just not a good pitcher, doesn't get strikeouts, pitches to contact, so if you're going to allow guys like VR and Mancini to put the ball in play, we could definitely see them go yard here. VR also, if he gets on base, can steal bases, which just adds to his upside. So I do like those guys quite a bit. Just scrolling through, looking at some of the other teams. Rays bats versus Homer Bailey. Even though Homer Bailey's been actually pitching pretty well this year, I still really like the Rays bats here. They're definitely going to be up there with my favorite stacks behind the White Sox. Probably would include them up there with the Rockies bats. Just really like Rays here. This team's just so good. Has a ton of power. Lowe, Pham, Choi, Diaz, Wendell, Garcia, Kiermaier. 1 through 7, 1 through 8, you could stack up the Rays versus Homer Bailey. Like going there. Maybe even some Astros bats versus Michael Pineda. Like I was looking at BVP earlier. Carlos Correa, to surprise, has gone 7 for 13 with 3 home runs off of Michael Pineda. So if you're a believer in BVP, Carlos Correa and George Springer both have hit Michael Pineda really well. Those are 2 guys you could look to. But the Astros are just such a good offense, even against a pitcher like Pineda who can get strikeouts. We know Pineda can blow up as well, even though he can get Ks. This is a guy that will get, or is prone to blowing up. So some Astros bats, specifically the 1 through 5, I like quite a bit. But that's probably the teams I'll be looking to for stacks today. Now going over BVP real quick, looking at some of the BVP plays that stand out. So let's just see here. David Peralta, 4 for 10 off of Trevor Williams. Chris Davis, 10 for 35, 4 home runs off of Von Nova. If there was any spot where I would play Chris Davis, it would probably be here versus a Von Nova, a pitcher that's not going to strike Davis out. It's going to let him hit the ball. If you were to play Chris Davis, I don't even know what his price is. He's $2,700. I would not mind playing some Chris Davis today, especially because he's so cheap. Yonder Alonso, 4 for 10 off of Cashner. Looking at some of the other ones, Jed Jorko, 13 for 20 with a home run off of Zach Davies. Matt Carpenter really hit Davies well, 10 for 22, 3 home runs. He's a guy you could look to for BVP. I mentioned the Astros, Springer and Correa. Both have really hit Pineda well. Arenado and Story have both hit Corbin well. I talked about that earlier. Marlon Gonzalez, 7 for 15 with a home run off of Wade Miley. And down at the bottom here, DJ LeMahieu, 4 for 12 off of Chris Stratton. But those are just some BVP plays that stand out on the slate, guys. I think that is it for the video, though. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. Hopefully it did help you. If you enjoyed, make sure you click that like button down below. And make sure you subscribe if you have not already. And like always, if you do have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT, or you can leave any comments down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one. Good luck tonight. Peace.